Let's do this. What's up, guys? KS here. Thanks for joining me today, as always. Early in 2017, I had the opportunity to test the Canik TP9 SF Elite and the TP9 SFX, and I have to say, they were great guns. I know some reviewers had issues with the Elite, but once Canik and Century Arms resolved those issues, the feedback was largely positive. With the compact size and the modest price point of the Elite, and the well-appointed, still inexpensive competition-ready TP9 SFX, Canik positioned themselves as real players in the firearms market. Yes, they have other models, but my experience prior to now was with those two. In late 2018, Canik and Century Arms teamed up with the popular aftermarket parts company Salient Arms to refresh the TP9 handgun, and refresh they did. With some awesome high-quality parts from Salient and many more upgrades from Canik, the newest offering now sits at the top of the lineup for the manufacturer. Now it's time to see if the Elite Combat stands on its own and is worth the extra money. Let's dive in. Alright, let's take a look at the Elite Combat and see what it's all about. Now, you guys have been enjoying the comparisons to other guns rather than me just spitting out specs, that sort of thing. So I've got the M&P 2.0C right here. This is the 4-inch model, just to give you an idea of where the Canik sits. I'll try and line these up as best I can. And by and large, they're pretty comparable. Now, there's an extended magazine in the Elite Combat right now, but with the flat magazine, which I'll talk about in a moment, they sit pretty similar in terms of grip length, but the Canik otherwise is overall just a little bit bigger than the 2.0C. Now, if you guys are curious, that 2.0C, that barrel right there, it's a Faxon Gold Nitride barrel. I do have a review coming on that soon. Very excited to talk with you guys about it. Now, we'll talk about a couple more specs and that sort of thing, but let's get this camera just a little bit closer. Okay, just a couple more words on specs. This actually weighs 25.8 ounces, so it's a little bit heavier than some of the other guns that I would say are compact, that sit in this category, so to speak, like a Glock 19 or that M&P 2.0C, but not by entirely too much. However, when I first picked this up at Centerfire Shooting Sports, my home away from home, first, the build quality feels awesome. I mean, it is a solid gun, but it also does feel heavy. In fact, heavier than it actually is. So just a couple things about that. Now, in terms of magazines, it does come with two different magazines. This one is actually an 18-round magazine. It does come with an extended mag base plate, I guess, and that is actually by Canik. It's not a Salient add-on, but I like it. Now, I haven't been able to find any extra ones on sale yet, so I'm sure that will be coming at some point in time, but they also have a flat magazine as well, and that's a 15-round magazine. Again, I prefer the extended magazine. I just like that a little bit better, but it's kind of nice that they give you options. For the price point at $850, however, I would have liked to have seen 3 magazines, maybe 2 of these. That's just me. I'm a little bit picky about that. But in terms of grip, several things going on. Of course, the grip texture on here on the side plates, it's very nice. I like it. It's kind of medium. It's not terrifically aggressive, but it's bitey enough that your hand's not going to go anywhere. However, it's also not going to beat you up or beat your clothes up, anything like that. And then it does have interchangeable back straps. I just kept the one that's in the box on it. It was very comfortable to me, but it does give you a little bit of flexibility there depending on your hand size. And there are some little pyramids on the back and some little squares on the front to add to the texture. And again, I have to say, when I was shooting, it stayed very planted in the hand. Now, one thing that really helps with this staying planted, and something that really catches your eye right off the bat with this, is a Salient Arms magwell right here, and I like it quite a bit. I think they did a very good job making everything very smooth, and it's a really nice attention to detail. And you know, when I first grabbed it, I kind of thought, well, it's shoving my fingers around a little bit, so they're pretty scrunched up, and this may not actually be very comfortable. However, when shooting, and of course I'll talk about the shooting more a little bit later on, but it really stayed very well planted and gave me a lot of control. So even though it is kind of pushing my pinky around, I actually like it. I'm a fan, and I don't have very many magwells in the collection, so this might change my mind about this a little bit. Now, the rest of the ergonomics, the rest of the grip is very smooth, but I like the contours on it quite a bit. And then they do give you a little bit of grip texture up forward on the frame, and that's nice for a reference point. I like that, and I use use those. So I think it's a really nice attention to detail. Canik did a good job with that. There's a little bit of an undercut under the trigger guard, but it's pretty slight. I think it probably could be a little bit more, especially considering the magwells here. That's nitpicky at this point in time. Now, one other thing that I did notice, you'll see that the back here, where I guess you would say a beaver tail would normally be, this is pretty darn wide. And I was thinking that that in shooting, I would start to get a little bit of a sore right here on this knuckle, as something like maybe a P10C would do. Those tend to beat me up pretty good. This didn't do it at all. So maybe it's wide enough to where it sits and it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't rock at all. And so it stayed very nice, very comfortable through the entire shooting experience. So I think they did a great job with that. Now, as far as controls go, a couple of things. Our magazine release, this actually is very reminiscent of the TP9 SFX in that it actually comes with a couple of different release options. This is the medium one that comes on the gun, and I like it. In fact, this is my shooting grip, of course. I don't have to change my grip at all to get the magazine out. That's really cool, but they do come with one that's just a little bit longer and also one that's a little bit shorter, so you can dial that into your needs. And although it's not ambidextrous, you can flip it around from what I understand. So it makes for left-handed shooters a little bit easier for them. And then your slide lock slide release is actually extended just a little bit from some of the other models, and it is on both sides, which is nice. However, it does stick out a little ways, makes the gun a little bit wider, but again, it's nice that they've got controls, and it's placed really nicely. So I used this quite a few times while shooting, and it worked very, very well. So in terms of takedown, it's very reminiscent to a Glock. You'll see we've got tabs on both sides here, and I will take this down for you. All you have to do is pull the trigger, and once you do, you'll actually pull your slide back just a little bit and pull down on those tabs, and then you can take your slide off. However, you don't have to slide it all the way forward. It actually just kind of pops off. There are a couple of little recesses on both sides of the slide, and that helps get that slide right off there. So again, you don't have to swing it off. It's not an advantage by any stretch of the imagination, but you know, kind of something a little bit different. Okay, now you'll notice that it does have a threaded barrel on it. If you're curious about the threads on this, it's a 13.5 by 1 left-handed thread. And I'll tell you what, in fact, there was a little editing mark right there. I always forget about that, and I'm so used to other threaded barrels that are, I think it's like 1/2 by 28 or 28 by 1/2, whatever it is. So it always takes me a little bit by surprise, but once we get our barrel out, there are all your parts to disassemble the gun, and there are actually a couple of things to talk about this. Now, one thing that Canik did with this, they actually coated the internals with an NP3 coating, which is kind of a slick coating, helps protect everything, makes it a little bit easier to clean, and you won't really notice it. I've had this on some other parts on other guns before, but again, I think it makes the wear in just a little bit easier on this, so it's a nice add-on for it. It helps kind of help you understand the price a little bit. Now, the slide's very easy to maintain. It's pretty much as you would expect, very clean. One thing I have noticed, there's a little bit of finish wear after shooting the first time. Now, this is internal. It's not a big deal. It doesn't affect the look of the gun at all, but it is something that I noticed. Now, the guide rod and spring assembly is steel, in case you're curious. And then the barrel, this actually is a salient barrel. So you'll see these salient arms right there. And I like the barrel. I mean, it's very nice. It's got a little bit of, I guess, fluting, if you will, on it. It's a nice barrel. And then the other thing from salient is actually the thread protector. This is a proprietary thread protector. I don't think it's anything terrifically special. The one thing that I did notice while shooting, I kept the thread protector on. It doesn't have an O-ring or anything like that, and it stayed put. So I thought that was pretty cool. Now, in terms of putting it all back together, of course, we'll take our barrel, throw it in, and then our guide rod and spring assembly, just like you would normally do with any other gun. But then again, you don't have to put the slide all the way forward. You can actually just line it up with these holes right here, and once you do, you're back on and ready to go. And then we just have to put our thread protector back on. We'll see if we can actually do this. Nope, doing it the wrong way. See, I get caught with that pretty much every time. I'll get used to it eventually. But again, easy disassembly. They make this very easy to clean. And I like the parts in it so far. It's been pretty impressive. In terms of the slide, we have several things going on. And you'll notice, of course, the whole thing is kind of a coyote tan finish, and I like the finish quite a bit. But they do have front and rear serrations on it. You guys know I'm a huge fan of that. I like it. And then there's a little bit of millwork up here just to break the slide up. I think it's actually a really attractive slide. Now, it's very similar to some of the other TP9 guns in the lineup. However, there are a couple of big differences, one of which you'll notice there's actually a plate back here. This is for red dots. And so it's nice to have that flexibility. It comes with 4 different plates, so you can run a variety of different optics. Now, there's one thing I don't like about it. A lot of people aren't fond of this. You actually lose your rear sight when you put the red dot on, so your co-witnessing options are limited. Now, I know some people say there are some red dots with cutouts in them. That's absolutely true, but your traditional co-witness is gone. So if you're curious about that, but again, it's nice they come with all the different plates, so you can run it as you will. Now, there is a loaded chamber indicator up here, and then there's also a striker indicator as well. So you've got quite a few different call outs to let you know where the gun is, what it's doing, that sort of thing. And then in terms of sights, this is the other Salient add-on. These are actually Salient sights, and they're fiber optic front. I switched it out for a green one right away. You guys know I'm a big fan of the green. It's just easier on my eyes. There's a little bit of serration up there in the front. And then on the rear, it's totally blacked out with some serrations. And you know what? This sight picture is fantastic. Now, I wish the fiber optic was a little bit bigger. That's just me, but otherwise, I like the picture on it. Now, they aren't suppressor height or anything like that. So if you're going to run a can, you're going to have to either look through or look for some different sights on that, or run the red dot. But either way, I think the combination, everything that they've put into this gun is actually pretty impressive. Now, I haven't talked about the trigger yet. We're going to talk about that here in just a moment. Otherwise, there's your Canik Elite Combat. The shooting experience with the Elite Combat was fantastic. I had a couple of reservations, as I mentioned before, especially with the magwell. It's just not something that I'm really used to, and even though I've got the CZ TSO with the magwell, it's a bigger grip all the way around, so it's no problem getting all your fingers on it without them being moved around. This definitely does, but it actually turned out to be a help. Now, as I'm getting older and my grip's not as good as it used to be, you guys see that in the shooting. I mean, I can't hide it, and I wouldn't. That's not a big deal. I can still put rounds on target. But the magwell actually turned out to help quite a bit, and now I'm becoming a little bit more of a fan of that. So it was a lesson learned there, but otherwise the ergonomics really played to the shootability of the firearm, and the firearm stayed very flat, flatter than I thought it would, because it's similar to something even like maybe a PPQ or something like that. And I've often found those to have a little bit more muzzle flip than some other firearms out there because they sit a little bit higher. This didn't seem to have that. Now it's also a tiny bit heavier, maybe an ounce or an ounce and a half heavier. I know that's not a lot, but every little bit of weight helps. And the threaded barrel, of course, keeps a little bit of weight up front as well. All of this is an advantage for the gun. And the sight picture, although again I would have liked to have seen bigger fiber optics, they were easy to pick up on the range. Now the range is well lit, that sort of thing. If it's a little bit more of a dim environment, perhaps they won't pick up as well. But even though there was the occasional flyer, overall the shooting experience with the Canik Elite Combat was fantastic. All right, let's take a look at the trigger for a moment or two. Again, this is a slightly different trigger than you would see on something like a TP9 SF Elite or something like that. It's very flat, and I really like it quite a bit. Now, it does have the safety lever in it. It's red. I think that's a pretty cool look. One thing I've noticed with this, that lever sits completely flat with the face of the trigger. That's really important to me. I like something that's very comfortable, it's very easy to use, and extremely flat. And then once you depress it, you've got just a little bit of take up right here, and you can feel the spring working, but it's very smooth. It really is. And then you've got your wall, and here's your brake. There's your brake, and it's coming in a little over 4 pounds, about 4¼ pounds, which is fantastic. And then your reset is right there. This reset is ridiculous. Now, other TP9s have fantastic triggers as well, and I don't know that they're necessarily best on the market. It's hard to tell what is, but I'll tell you what, this is darn close. And I'm going to do this again. We've got our take up, very smooth. There's that spring. We've got our wall. There's our brake, and then the reset is right there. There's your follow-up. I mean, I'll tell you what, you can run this thing really fast. So as far as triggers go, this is absolutely fantastic out of the box. So guys, what do I think of the Canik Elite Combat overall? Well, overall, I like it. I like it a lot. Now, Again, it's more expensive, MSRP around $850, so you're going to be able to find it probably for a little bit less than that, especially as time goes on. But considering everything you've got with this gun, it basically has all of the features: the threaded barrel, the red dot plates on it, the very good trigger, the mag well, and extended base plate, even though I would have liked to have seen 3 magazines. But when I think about all of these things that go into the gun, I think it really is well worth it. Now, I know some people would say, well, just get a Glock and put those parts on, and you can definitely do that. There's nothing wrong with that. But I love the fact that this comes out of the box ready to go. In fact, it's very reminiscent of something like an FN 509 Tactical, which I'm a big fan of. The only difference are the suppressor sights, but otherwise, you're getting so much out of the box. And the fact that they teamed up with Salient, a very well-known company, to do some of these parts, I think that's really cool, and again, very worth the money. And the shooting experience with it is phenomenal. That trigger and the ergonomics really pair very well together to make just a great experience overall. So, guys, I'm really excited to hear what you have to say about this. If you agree or disagree, I know some people aren't quite as fond of where this gun actually comes from. I get that, but there are a lot of Caniks out there, and they're becoming pretty prevalent around here. So, guys, I'm really excited to hear what you have to say about the Canik Elite Combat. If you're curious about anything, if I missed anything, occasionally I do miss things, be sure to share your experiences down below with any other Canik models and some of your favorite models out there. I'm always interested to hear about that and carry on a conversation with you guys. Otherwise, thanks so much for joining me, and I will see you next time.